We have an advanced question about the melting face emoji. I think so useful. You know, you ask someone, how are you doing? Melty face. What do you think of Beyonce's new single? Melty face. So many ways to use it. A question from Satrio in Indonesia, who was so curious about like how your attitude is about quirkier concepts or quirkier emojis. Can you elaborate how the Unicode approaches these more niche emotion emojis? I think she is also asking about your sense of humor as a group.
You know, I am a firm believer that emoji are primarily effective when they're not trying to reproduce reality. So that they are a feeling, then a specific person or a specific way you're contorting your face. Like if you look at zany, we don't really do that when we're feeling zany, but it's evocative of that feeling. And so when you look at, I don't know, we have over 100 smiley faces now. How many ways can our faces be distorted? I mean, like, honestly, like straight up, like we are hardwired to read micro expressions in people's faces. It's really important. Like that's how that's how we communicate. And so at emoji sizes, you can't encode every way we raise an eyebrow or purse our lips. And so what is great about some of these new additions is that they are metaphorical and that they can be used in a number of different ways. So melty face, or what are some of the other new ones that are like that? Oh, they all blur together now.
The invisible sort of.
Oh, dotted line face. Yes, exactly. And so they lean into visual tropes. And so these are both examples of some work that we did with Neil Kahn, who's a cognitive scientist and comics theorist, which is, in my opinion, the best blend of interests and professions and academic interests that I can think of. He scans people's brains as they read comics. He teaches and is creating a whole new generation of folks interested in visual literacy. And he did this great work around kind of like an audit of manga, a number of different graphic novels, saying like, here are common ways facial expressions are represented. And he found about over 60 themes, visual morphemes is what he called them. So we took that list that he did all the hard work. That was all him and so actually somebody else as well, whose name I can't remember. And I took that and I said, okay, if these are 60 common ways people are expressing themselves in graphic novels, which ones are already represented in Unicode? Did a big, I was like, okay, actually, there's only 10 that are not. Okay, let's look at this 10. Of that 10, how many can be discernible at emoji sizes? Meaning, like, can they be shrunk down to this size? Because it's different when you have a whole full panel than when you have something really tiny. Well, okay, maybe about like 6 of these. And then from there, we were able to pass a number of proposals for invisible face, exhale face, dotted line face, I think head in clouds. So we start with this big audit, looking at how people are already communicating, and then identify where the gaps are, and then we fill the gaps, kind of like a dentist, I suppose. But we work with lots of different folks who are studying this, and we find ways that that complement what he's interested in, what Neil's interested in understanding, and what we're interested in understanding. So Melty Face really came from that work. And actually, the visual morpheme that is in manga is known as paperification, which is when a character turns into paper and kind of like the wind blows it away. And like he turns into 2D. But like that's too nuanced of an idea for emoji form. So we found a parallel of melting, which is also a common way of depicting a similar concept. And it's more discernible at emoji sizes.
That's incredible. So in your process, you're peer reviewed. Now I'm getting a picture. It's not like, sipping champagne. It's like, let's do this.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of rolling up your sleeves for sure.
Okay. So lots of collaboration with academics, I gather. I know inclusivity is like one of the things you always advocate for. How do you define inclusivity? And there's some criticism about emoji being basically the opinion or the point of view from one part of the world. How are you making sure that maybe doesn't happen, or how are you guarding against it?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is that emoji is one point of the world. It's from Japan. It's a Japanese point of view of it. And that there was no desire for Japan to represent the whole world. We're like, no, we're like, this is this, and so it's come a long way since then, I will say. It's not just for Japan anymore. But emoji are, the more we can lean into globally relevant concepts, and by globally relevant, it means less specific to one region of the world, and more that it's something that can mean something, not necessarily the same thing, but something to everybody. And that's a much harder goal to deliver on. It's very easy, so get great press to say, oh, we encoded something for this specific region of the world, and now they have representation. It's largely performative, shallow, and it's not going to be used. But if we're able to say, like, this is how people around the world express pride, and it's a smile with a tear, it can be used by everybody. Or here's the concept of a tropical drink. What does tropical mean to different people? It means different things. So like, to some people that means mate, to other people it means a coconut with a straw and umbrella, but like to both parts, they mean something to them. And so they can use it in a way that's meaningful to those individuals. And that is where I hope the subcommittee continues to investigate and interrogate, because we care about people looking into their keyboard and recognizing themselves in some way. It might not be you specifically, Jennifer Daniel.
Yes.
But it will be like, oh, okay, like I can actually see myself through this in some meaningful way. So it's less diversity and more inclusion.
One tiny question on that. You've recently announced no more flags.
Yes.
And this is, I guess, one way people think about their identity. I watch a lot of, I don't know, I should confess, Formula One. And like, whenever people comment there, it's just 5 blocks of like, I don't know, the Brazilian flag or the Australian flag for Daniel Ricciardo. Have you gotten pushback on this flag, moratorium on flags, and have you gotten any appeals from vexillologists? I've written about it.
I think that people care about, if you care about flags, you're going to care about the flag emoji policy. And if you care about lobsters, you're going to care about the lobster emoji. Okay. And so I think it's like a very broad way of thinking about it, but you find that emoji become these lightning rods to have a discussion when you're not actually talking about emoji at all. You're not. You're talking about what the subtext is. They're talking about identity and flags, but they're not really talking about Unicode. And I think that's fascinating. That's when you start getting philosophical and you're like, yes, okay, let's look at like, what is the concept of identity? How can it be represented? Is it abstraction like flags? Is it reproducing reality like avatars? Is it a combination of the two? Should it be infinitely like there's so many ways of expressing identity. And so, yeah, I think that that's important kind of to untangle when looking at emoji dialogue online, is that when people are talking about something, really, they have a passion for rodents. So they have opinion on the mouse emoji. And I love that. I love hearing how people are thinking about it, how they're using it, and learning from all of them.
I wait for the update from your subcommittee saying, hey, no more cannabis emojis and no more rodent emojis.
I will confess, I do feel like I've turned in a little bit of a Dr. No. But yeah, I think it's helpful. I think guardrails, for so long, the subcommittee was saying, we will fill in the blank. We weren't practicing no nearly as much. And I think that's really important for people to understand when they're writing proposals or using emoji. And so this was a first, I think our first no, like in terms of a policy, and it's been well received.
That's great. It's a more critical stance. I have too many questions, but we're running out of time. I'll ask something from Sitong from China, who had a question, I think, about interoperability. He's saying some emoji look different in various platforms and devices, which can lead to miscommunication. How is Unicode addressing this problem? And I guess I'll couple this with a related question. I noticed that the Noto emoji does not work on some. I noticed that the Noto emoji does not work for all emojis when I use my Android phone. Heart and umbrella vacation, 2 examples. Are you working on this?
Yeah, I wasn't able to reproduce that bug, so I'm not really sure. Yeah, so I would say file a bug with your phone.
Okay, for the second one, but a general one on what things look on the iPhone, on your Android.
Yeah, no, this is what Unicode does.
Okay.
Unicode is all about interoperability, and the design is largely playing a role in that, right? So there's a couple things. One, I think the old process the subcommittee was doing was more free range, where the Unicode would create guidelines and they'd say, here are the 60 new concepts. They'd include a sample image, but it'd be maybe some from the proposal or clip art or something. And then they'd throw it over the fence. And then designers would take it and design whatever they wanted. And then you would result in all kinds of fragmentation. So things like X eyes instead of swirl eyes for dizzy, because both can mean dizzy, right? The descriptions were more prescriptive than descriptive. So there's a couple things that have changed since then. We've started naming emoji more descriptively. So that helps ensure the longevity of it. So we might think of a certain gesture meaning a specific thing, but we won't describe it in that way. We'll describe it in the way that the fingers are being crossed, or if it's downwards or upwards. And that's helped designers go, okay, this is supposed to be a hand that is configured in this particular, or a face. We'll say like face with spiral eyes. And so like, oh, okay, spiral eyes. The other part is that design is part of the discussion as much as any other part of the emoji and its legitimacy. So we're talking about direction, color, species. When we talk about architecture, we're talking about northern or southern styles. And that way those discussions are done early. We have meaningful alignment. Like if color has a meaningful role in the concept of the emoji, like life buoy, it should be a fluorescent orange. But there's other types. There's red and there's white types, but this one it'll be more discernible in light and dark mode. It's distinctive, it's iconic, it's used, I have to fact check this last one, so I won't say it, but there's a lot of argumentation for why orange over a white lifesaver, right? And so now that design is part of the discussion and we vet the images more meaningful alignment will happen. And I think over the past 4 years, at least I know we've worked on studies to measure the variance of interpretation, and we have found that has closed substantially since 2016, when a lot of those studies came out. That was like, oh, these emoji, we got blobs, we got gold faces over here. What do we, everyone was like, it's a crazy world. And I think a lot of brands understood that infusing their corporate perspective on the emoji, this was not a place to do it. It needed to have meaningful alignment for their customers, quite honestly, to use them in the first place. And so now you see folks going, okay, what are we talking about here? Like, does everyone, okay, we're talking about a paper fan? Are we talking, folded fan? Like, what kind of fan are we doing? What is the most common one? So those discussions are more part of the review process.
That's wonderful.
But please do file that bug. If you are seeing something broken, we want to fix it. So please let us know.
We are running out of time. So many questions still. I've found this blog post you wrote called Emojis Are Born, Not Made, very useful. So maybe check that out. Before I turn over to Toril for the wrap up, one last question. I feel like we kind of know each other now, so I'm going to ask you maybe, I think, the most personal question to ask these days. Jennifer, what is the last emoji you used?
That is very personal, I don't know. I think we've gotten there though. I feel like we're there. I'm looking at my phone because I don't know what the last emoji is off the top of my head. It was despair face. It was the despair face, the anguished face. I quite like that one. I am on vacation though, which is an indication that maybe I'm not vacationing right. But I would love to know what everyone else's last used emoji in the chat as well. Please, I would love to know what everyone else's is. But I love the most recently used part of my keyboard. It really gives me a sense of it's like a diary entry.
Yeah, like personal. But how are you now, right?
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for everyone's attention. Thank you for having me. Deadline for emoji proposals, July 31st, World Emoji Day is Sunday. You can adopt a character all year. And with that, I turn back to tutorial. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Anne.
That's great. Thank you so much, Anne and Jennifer. This was fantastic. I just want to wrap up by saying I'd like to thank our organizational and individual members and all of the volunteers who ensure that we can all communicate and collaborate the way that we take for granted, as Anne pointed out. And a special shout out to our production team. I'm just going to share my screen here very quickly, just so I don't miss anybody. So, special thanks to that team as well for supporting us in the background. And please go to unicode.org to learn more. So thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day and week.